Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the world headquarters of GB News, this is Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. The weekend starts here, so bring your own drinks. The admission is free. On tonight's show, developing this evening, the sandwich wars continue as Nigel Farage defends his choice of lunch.
Working lunch today, cheese and pickle sandwich. Proper job.
But in an extraordinary intervention, the Conservative Party leader Kemi Badenoch has blasted Nigel's video and his choice of lunch with the following post on Twitter. She says, "What a bland, soggy old sandwich." Is she talking about the food or Nigel? She says for some proper red meat, it's got to be the Conservatives. More on that shortly. Also tonight, as it's revealed, his close friend is an alleged Chinese spy. Is Prince Andrew now a bigger national embarrassment than Harry, Meghan and Gary Lineker? Also, is it too soon to write off Kemi Badenoch? What's your verdict on her performance so far? Is sleeping with 1,000 men in a day an example of female empowerment? And is Sir Elton John right that marijuana legislation is the greatest mistake of all time? Plus a bit more politics, and after a stunning local election win over Labour, and as they lead the Tories in some polls, are Reform UK now the real opposition? To react, Friday's A-Team, who, let me tell you, have had a drink. BBC radio legend Alex Dyke, fearless political analyst Reem Ibrahim, and the all-powerful broadcaster and commentator Amy Nicole Turner. Plus, at the end of the show, as he releases a brand new perfume, tonight's top 10 list is Donald Trump-themed fragrances. And as a shock new growth figures demonstrate that Britain is flirting with recession, I'm going to call this out as the worst government in history. Find out why in my Friday Feeling monologue straight after the news headlines. And with me in the studio, good to have him here at GB News at our headquarters, Will Hollis.
Thank you, Mark. Your top story at 8 o'clock this evening. Nothing of a sensitive nature was discussed between the Duke of York and a suspected Chinese spy, according to the Duke's office. A statement says the Duke of York followed advice from His Majesty's government and ceased all contact with the individual after concerns were raised. The man, known only as H6, was said to be a close confidant of the Prince and reportedly was invited to the Duke's birthday. The Prime Minister has said the world should be cautious about what comes next in Syria. Speaking during a virtual meeting of the G7, Sir Keir Starmer told allies, while welcoming the Syrian regime's collapse, a new government should be credible and inclusive for all Syrians. In other news, the UK economy shrank for the second month in a row in October as concerns about the budget continue to weigh on confidence. The Office for National Statistics said output fell 0.1% following the 0.1% decline recorded for the previous month. The figures showed zero growth in the powerhouse services sector, with manufacturing and construction declining at a pace of 0.6% and 0.4% respectively. The ONS says activity had stalled or declined, with pubs, restaurants and retail among sectors reporting weak months. Chancellor Rachel Reeves said she was disappointed by the data. And the government has unveiled a Clean Power Action Plan to decarbonise the electricity grid by 2030. Number 10 claims the move will protect households from any future energy spikes, boost growth and tackle the climate crisis. Meanwhile, some government-backed researchers have warned Secretary of State for Energy and Climate Change Ed Miliband's plans could actually increase bills. Well, earlier, GB News spoke to Energy Minister Michael Shanks.
Yes, reforming the planning system to make sure we build things faster than we are at the moment is important, but we're not removing the right of communities to have a voice in that process. What we're saying is at the moment the planning process is often just drown in paperwork for years and years, which doesn't help communities but also doesn't get really essential infrastructure built.
The widow of former England rugby player Tom Voice says she's overwhelmed by the support received since he went missing. His wife Anna said, "Absolutely devastated and heartbroken doesn't describe how we feel." The 43-year-old's body was recovered yesterday and his identity confirmed after a 5-day search of the River Ann. The player's car was swept away while trying to cross Aberwick Ford in Northumberland during Storm Dara. And finally, your last story tonight. Police are asking for the public's help after vandals targeted Christmas decorations in East Anglia. Captured on CCTV, at least 5 incidents of people cutting wires on Christmas lights have been reported. Police say the mindless vandalism by the so-called Suffolk Scrooge has brought hurt and financial costs to young and old in the area. Well, those are your latest headlines for now. Let's get you back to Mark Dolan.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Nice one, Will. We'll see you in an hour. Would it be great to get hold of those scroats that stole those Christmas lights? Now, day 162 of the grown-ups being in charge. How's it going? Well, we've given away sovereign British territory. Pensioners are freezing to death. We've annoyed the president-elect of our biggest ally. There's a stampede of private school kids heading into the already oversubscribed state sector. 10,000 millionaires are expected to leave the country this year, a record. Farmers are killing themselves because of the inheritance tax raid. Borrowing is up. Public sector pay are up. Inflation is up. Companies are laying people off. Business sentiment and recruitment are at the lowest level since the pandemic. And we're gambling our economic future on flaky renewables. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister doesn't own any of his own clothes. And news today that the economy shrank again this month by 0.1%. What a treat to have those grown-ups back in charge. Now, the economic figures are extraordinary. Earlier in the year, growth was 0.7% under the evil Tories, who crashed the economy, apparently. And that growth is now 0.1%, and we are flirting with recession. But you know what? On this Friday evening, I actually don't mind. I'm not bothered by the fact that Britain has descended into a socialist doom loop of ever higher taxes, higher borrowing and lower growth. Because Britain has got its first woman chancellor. And that's all that matters to me. She's got rid of the men's urinals in the Treasury and hung up women's art. That is the real change Britain needs. The one chink of light from this Labour government could be their efforts to build 1.5 million homes before the next election, as announced by Sharon Stone Tribute Act Angela Rayner. But there was even a fly in that ointment, with doubts that they'll hit that figure and with claims that 5 out of every 7 of any new homes built will go to immigrants. This might be the worst government in history, which is why Labour won't win next time and can't win next time. But when whoever takes over, possibly Prime Minister Nigel Farage, if you look at the direction of the polls, how much of a country will there be left to govern? Britain is broke in more ways than one. Now for reaction, my Friday A-team. We have BBC radio legend Alex Dyke, fearless political analyst Reem Ibrahim, and the all-powerful broadcaster and commentator Amy Nicole-Turner. Great to see all three of you. Alex, let me start with you. We're in trouble, aren't we?
I think we probably are, yes. It just seems to go from bad to worse, with calamity over calamity. And, well, who knows what the new year's going to bring?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I would say to you, Amy, is bring back Liz Truss. All is forgiven.
I don't know. I can't see any of what you're saying because nothing has really happened yet, has it?
So the October budget.
But wait, it was 0.1% down, right?
0.1% growth.
Yeah. So fine, not great. It's not great. But is this not a bit like that bit in the Titanic where they suddenly turn the ship and it takes a while to actually turn?
And we know what happened to the Titanic, don't we?
Aren't we still waiting? Like, the Conservatives, they produced a big old iceberg for us to crash into.
I don't know how you can look at the growth figures and see that the economy was growing at a very, very modest rate.
Exactly.
Let's be honest, we could do better at the beginning of the year.
July it was... January it was 0.7.
0.7.
And July it was 0.5, wasn't it?
Yeah, so very, very modest rate of growth, but it's
highest
still...
in the G7.
It is highest in the G7, but I think that we can do better. And also, we weren't starting at a very good point. That being said, I don't know how you can look at that and then look at 0.1% in October and think, oh, no, we just need to wait and see. We also have the predictions from the Office for National Statistics. We know that actually the prediction is that the economy is going to grow at a slower rate than otherwise would have done under the Conservatives. Now,
and interest rates will take another year to come down, won't they?
This is the thing. The Bank of England are responding to the economy's economic growth, but also they're responding to what the government do with the budget. Ultimately, interest rates, we could see them decline at a much slower rate or increase at a much slower rate as a result of what the government are doing. So it really is a dire economic situation.
I mean, I think it's simple as that. You made a terrible mistake backing Labour in July, didn't you?
I don't think so.
Even you have the Tories back now.
Let's look at what happened today with the plans for clean power by 2030. That will grow the economy. It will grow the economy because we will have cheaper, affordable energy. One of the sectors that went down was services. Why are services needing a bit more cash? Because they can't afford their electricity bills. Clean and affordable energy is one way.
When's it going to be more affordable?
Well,
what's the timeline for cheaper bills?
They've predicted, what, £300 in the next...
Yeah, when's that coming?
But the point is...
I want to put it in the diary.
I think it's really...
Wait, hold fire. I've got my Google Calendar. I'll put it in the diary. When are we getting this 300 quid, Amy?
Look, it's a good trajectory to be on. The Clean Power Plan is a good thing that Labour has given us.
25 March, that's my son's birthday. Is it later next year?
OK, well, here's a question to you. What would the Conservatives have done differently to produce this magical growth?
They wouldn't have talked us into recession, would they? They wouldn't be doing what Keir Starmer's done. And, you know, shortly after getting elected, he just stands up and says, I've got some bad news. Then a month later gives you bad news. That it's knocking the confidence of the country. The Conservatives wouldn't have done that.
I'm almost certainly not claiming that the Conservatives will do any better. What I am saying is that there is undoubtedly economic trajectory that is negative for this country. We're seeing economic growth decline to 0.1%. We're seeing the government take huge amounts of money from working people. The national insurance contribution increase is ultimately going to hurt working people.
But the national insurance contribution...
And Amy, let me just finish very quickly. This stuff about net zero is going to make people poorer. You don't get cheaper energy by creating and investing in more expensive forms of energy.
It's really...
I think net zero is important, but it shouldn't be a government target. It should be allowed to happen through the private sector.
It's really clear. Well, just energy security. There's no way that's going to make us poorer and colder. What's making us poorer and cold is reliance on foreign energy.
So we should be using oil and gas domestically.
Absolutely not. And that will never, ever be the solution. Because,
why?
Well, one, it runs out eventually, and two, it's killing the planet.
Amy, couldn't we use it until it runs out?
I don't think so. I think it will be in the mix for a long time, but I don't know why...
Well, wait a minute. You say it will be in the mix.
You talk about...
Keir Starmer is not going to allow any new oil and gas licences
No
in the North
new
Sea.
oil and gas licences. That doesn't mean not using oil and gas, although if I had it my way, you would stop using oil and gas because it's...
That would make people poorer, Amy.
How?
Okay.
That would make...
And also it would create opportunities, create jobs, address things like the need to create more industry within the UK, increase our manufacturing, increase everything. It's an opportunity. It's a
not
business opportunity.
It's not up to the government to create jobs. It's the private sector. It's businesses.
Well,
that
wait a
create
minute.
Jobs.
Millions of people, thousands of people will be employed in green energy if under Labour's plans, won't they?
Absolutely.
It will boost employment.
And that's a huge
And
waste.
won't it generate economic growth, as Amy says?
It won't generate economic growth.
It'll put a tiger in the tank.
What it will do, it won't put a tiger in the tank. What it will do is it will waste huge amounts of taxpayer money into technologies, green technologies that are not feasible.
But we can't live on these fossil fuels forever. Why don't we get started
early? And we're not doing that. We are already seeing technological advancements occur. You know who has done more for the environment than anybody else?
Ed Miliband.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk has made electric vehicles cheaper and more accessible for the entire world. So actually, I think that the evidence is here. The proof is in the pudding. The way we solve climate change...
Nobody wants those electric.
People do want them more and more now.
Amy, lots of people will agree with you about renewable energy and about energy security. But here's my question to you. Why has economic growth fallen since the Tories left power?
But these figures today are from October, so these are pre-budget. So you could put these down to pre-budget jitters.
Probably going to be worse after the budget.
Well, you don't know, because think about what's happened. So we've seen the 22 billion black hole, whatever. If that money was required, so taxes need to be raised, and then surely this will lead to some stability, particularly within the public sector.
Amy, finish your point.
The money needed to be found from somewhere. I haven't seen the Conservatives put forward an alternative solution to, for instance, the national insurance hike. So you needed the money to stabilise the public sector. So what other options did they have? Ultimately, that stability will create growth.
You're not worried you've got a government
I don't think it's a fast fix, is it?
Well, you're not worried that the government were elected, Labour were elected on the principle that we will be the government of growth, and growth has fallen on their watch in the first 162 days.
But these things are so volatile, and I can't see how any other political party could have done anything differently, really, in terms of creating growth. How can you create growth that quickly?
So you create growth by slashing the public sector, by cutting taxes, by deregulating the economy. And by the way, I think Amy's right. What we saw this week is quite positive. The government are going to take further steps into deregulating the planning system, which is, by the way, something that us free marketeers have been banging on about since the 1980s. That being said, I do think that we have to have a conversation about why we don't see economic growth in this country. It is because the state gets in the way. It is so depressing. I can't bear to see Britain in decline, and it's as a result of government policies that are actively crushing economic growth and ultimately hurting working people.
Now, Alex, to be fair to Amy, perhaps this little drop in GDP was going to happen. Maybe that was in the economic cycle, because certainly the Conservatives' positive growth figures were off the back of that cut to national insurance, which Labour have convincingly argued wasn't really affordable. So do you think Rishi Sunak saw this coming and that's why he actually bailed?
What, and called an early election? Well, maybe he did. Maybe he did. I just think that other parties, and I'll say the Conservatives because they are usually in power, would have dealt with the publicity, the talking,
the messaging
about this completely different. And it looked to me, as soon as Labour got in, Keir Starmer was saying, well, look, we're beaten, really, aren't we? It's going to be tough, and then it's going to be tougher. And you don't want to be talking the country into a recession.
OK, Amy, briefly, last word to you.
Friday the 13th.
There you go. Unlucky
Bad luck.
Unlucky for some. Listen, folks, that debate is going to rage on, but it's time now for our biggest and greatest Great British giveaway this year. And your chance to win £50,000 in tax-free cash. It's the biggest cash prize we've ever given away, and it could be yours. Here are the details.
It's the biggest, greatest Great British giveaway so far, with your chance to win a spectacular £50,000 in tax-free cash. 2025 could be amazing, with plenty of treats, holidays and fun on the horizon. How would you enjoy that cash? £50,000 will make someone our biggest ever winner. For another chance to win £50,000 cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck and fingers crossed for each and every one of you. Well, as it's revealed, his close friend is an alleged Chinese spy. Is Prince Andrew now a bigger national embarrassment than Harry, Meghan and Gary Lineker combined? Also, is it too soon to write off Kemi Badenoch? That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
And the latest series of Big Brother has just wrapped up, and as always, the housemates managed to cause a stir.
Yeah, that's an understatement. After 5 weeks of drama and twists and turns, 6 housemates were left to battle it out for a £90,000 prize.
Well, our next guest was there to the bitter end, coming third in this year's competition.
6 weeks you were in there.
Oh, I tell you what, it was a long time.
What goes through your mind? Is it do you start to go a bit sort of what do they call it, cabin fever?
Yeah.
Do you go a bit nutty?
Like at times, not that I've ever been in prison, but I kind of likened it to being in jail, particularly when we were having to eat the porridge with water, no sugar, or that was difficult. And the feeling that you just can't leave. I mean, you can, but it was, it was
you
tough.
can, but you won't get your hands on that prize money.
No, exactly.
You made it to the end.
Yeah.
And it's quite a big house, isn't it?
Yes.
Do you feel as though you can get away from housemates if they're annoying you a bit, or does it feel like your hot house with
no,
people you don't like very much?
If you're sort of, if you're not comfortable with a certain conversation or something like that, you can always take yourself and move away. But can you have time to yourself? No. Not really. I mean, even you might think, do you know what, I'll just go and lock myself in the toilet for a few minutes. There's a camera and there's a mic in there, so you can't escape that. And then you're obviously wearing a mic, so there is that little feeling of, I could just do with having 5 minutes to myself, but you can't really get it.
You've met up with one side of the house, but not the other side yet. But is that still on the cards, do you think?
I hope so, yeah, because I liked every single person in that house, despite a few whispers on the internet, like, do you not like this? I liked everybody in the house, never had a bad word with anybody, so...
GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your-say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is it too soon to write off Kemi Badenoch? Amy Nicole.
Well, I think that Kemi let herself down this week because she had such an open goal at PMQs, right? The farmers were essentially banging on the door of the chamber and she didn't bring it up. Instead, she focused on immigration and then she finished the week waging war with sandwiches. I'm not sure she's got the instinct for what... And, when she was picked as the leader, I thought she would do really well because she's fiery. But it turns out she's very angry about lots of things, including lunch and sandwiches. And I just don't feel like she's making the most of the opportunities that she could.
Well, that's interesting, Alex, because the sandwiches has at least made some headlines, and that's what Kemi Badenoch has summarily failed to do so far.
Yes, but it got hijacked by other people, didn't it? And I think the problem is we're not sure whether she was meant to be being clever, if it was a joke, if it was PR, and because we don't understand it, we're distanced from it, And then Nigel wages in, and we see him, and you've seen it all on GB News. He's having a hearty, boozy lunch one day, then he's having a sandwich, and she's had it taken from her. Now Keir Starmer's had to come in and talk about his cheese and pickle sandwich. And what about all of the cafes and sandwich bars and corner shops and pubs and bakers? 93% of us enjoy a sandwich. She's not really endeared herself with all of those people either, is she?
Well, that's interesting that you mentioned Nigel. So, look, let me bring you up to speed on a developing story, which is essentially that Nigel Farage did a video showing everybody, showing the world his lunch, which was a sandwich. Now, Kemi Badenoch was very critical of sandwiches this week. She said it's not proper food. So let's take a listen to Nigel's video, first of all.
Working lunch today, cheese and pickle sandwich. Proper job.
Well, that's lovely. He enjoyed it. He's got his crisps and everything. But Kemi Badenoch's not happy, so she jumped onto X, the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, and she tweeted the following. Listen, Mel, can you yell this in my ear? What did she say? What a bland, soggy old sandwich. For some proper red meat, it's got to be the Conservatives. I mean, I've got to say, this is the Kemi Badenoch that we were waiting for, isn't it, Reem?
I do think it's really lovely to take the politics out of a bit of fun. I think it's really hilarious. I do think, though, she kind of misjudged the tone. Everyone knows that Nigel Farage is objectively cooler. Right, he's cool. He has that hearty lunch. He'll have a beer.
He's got the mustard cords. He's got the pint of ale. He's got the cigar.
Is that cool?
I think he's cool. I think Nigel Farage is objectively cool. That being said, I think that Kemi Badenoch has tried to chime in and say, no, we're the cool ones, and totally fell flat.
Well, she's called him a soggy sandwich. That's quite funny, isn't it?
It is funny. It's hilarious, but she's not the cool one. See,
I don't think any of them are the cool one. I don't think there is a cool one.
Is Nigel Farage cool?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I would. I mean, there are a number of things that I admire. I really admire the fact he doesn't use an auto cue. I think that's really cool. That's cool, actually. Yeah. Fine. There are elements that are cool.
Hang on, Mark. Look, if you're doing cool, Steve McQueen
Everyone has something cool.
Yeah, Steve McQueen.
You know, Nigel Farage is not cool. He's got the X factor, but for Kemi, it's now only a matter of time before she gets photographed somewhere having a sandwich. And when she does, she's going to have egg on her face.
Yeah, do you know who was cool? Ed Miliband, who said something about the sandwiches and was
Wait a minute. Can I just say,
he referenced the bacon sandwich.
In one show, you've likened Labour's performance to the Titanic, and you're now defending Ed Miliband's sandwich-eating capabilities after his career was nearly destroyed by a bacon sandwich. And you want a death wish tonight?
We can admit it's very cool that Ed Miliband can laugh at himself and he can see that bacon sandwich gate is something that he can, in hindsight, be quite jolly about.
Well, I think that's what Kemi was doing. Kemi was trying to laugh at herself. And by the way, this is quintessential British humour.
Of course it
being
is.
able to laugh at yourself, being able to laugh inwardly. And I think it's pretty funny and pretty cool. I also think that objectively, Nigel is cooler, and so he wins that Twitter battle.
And also, do you know what? Kemi is doing Nigel such a big favour because those reform votes, they're just taking them off the Conservatives, really, aren't they?
Well, that's interesting, Alex.
The lines, lunches are for wimps, sandwiches aren't real food. There's going to be a sandwich wagon by Monday doing a Kemi sandwich.
It's true.
And saying, and mucking about with the lunches for
sandwich.
Yeah, the
you've got
lunches
to remember, there is no such thing as a free lunch. And this Labour government seemed to want to give away all our taxpayer money regardless.
Well, Alex, there is going to be a political sandwich in 4 years' time, and it's going to be comprised of Nigel Farage, Richard Tice and Kemi Badenoch, isn't it? Because there's no way that they can't work together if they want to achieve power.
Well, they might have to, mightn't they? They might have to. But, Reform have got 4 years to get their house in order as far as winning an election's concerned.
And they're already ahead of the Tories.
And they are growing so quickly.
Well, we're going to come back to
Not
that
as quickly as the economy, though, because remember the little Titanic turny thing, when the boat eventually does turn...
Don't keep mentioning the Titanic!
Well, OK...
Do you know what happens at the end of that film?
OK, fine, I will change it. I will say barge, just any boat that didn't hit an iceberg in the end, OK?
Yeah, not like sort of... what was that one that went down in the 80s? The Herald of Free Enterprise. I mean, it's not Zeebrugge exactly.
Yeah, Townsend Torreson.
There you go. Very briefly, Alex, before we move on to Prince Andrew for a bit of light relief. I was looking at the Telegraph today. I read all the papers and looked at the Telegraph, and they had a poll up about is Kemi Badenoch doing a good job or not, or is it too soon to say? and the vast majority took the view that it's too soon.
Yeah.
She needs a chance, she needs time, and she could grow into the job, no?
Yeah, she could, and actually she's going to, you know, worse things could have backfired on Kemi, and she's going to learn from this.
Yeah. OK, well, speaking of learning, as it is revealed that his close friend is an alleged Chinese spy, is Prince Andrew now a bigger embarrassment than Harry, Meghan and Gary Lineker combined? Reem.
I do think he is a huge embarrassment. I think Prince Andrew, just to be quite frank, needs to be disowned from the royal family. How many scandals has he been involved in? And how many almost crimes has he been involved in? I think ultimately...
What do you mean almost crimes?
Well, the
guy's got a spotless record.
Oh, yes, absolutely, completely spotless. He is a beacon of prosperity. He is clearly the example that we should all be looking up to, not.
Well, look, you're indulging in hearsay, and this guy has not been found guilty of anything in any court of law.
You're absolutely right, and by law he has not been found guilty.
So why
of
this
anything.
terrible smear
But
for an innocent man and a good man?
Why the £12 million?
He's not innocent. He's not innocent, nor is he a good man. I think that he is a national disgrace. Probably, I mean, I think Harry and Meghan at least were not involved with criminals. I mean, what you could argue what they did to the Queen was close to criminal, but it wasn't officially legally illegal. But what Prince Andrew has done is, I think, embarrassed this country, and I think that he needs to go as far from the official royal family as possible.
Do you question the judgment of our late, great Queen Elizabeth II, for whom Andrew was famously her favourite son? Are you challenging Elizabeth now?
No, I think that the Queen Elizabeth...
And soiling her memory, frankly?
No, absolutely not, Mark. How dare you accuse me of such a thing? I think that what the Queen did do was she was very kind to him and clearly loved him to pieces. I mean, he's her son, was her son. I think that we need to take a bit more of a hard line now. The things that have been revealed after her death and some of the information that we've learned since, I think does show that he causes more harm than good for the royal family.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this, Amy? My feeling is that Andrew has been thrown under the bus to a certain extent. What do you think?
How do you work that out?
Well, for example, this link with a Chinese spy.
He just keeps throwing himself under the bus.
There are plenty of Chinese spies, aren't there?
Are you a Chinese spy, Mark?
Well, I'm close to Beijing. That's another story. Amy, for example, the Labour backbencher Barry Gardiner had someone in his office who was linked to the Chinese Communist Party. These folk are everywhere. I think it's a bit unfair pinning this on Prince Andrew, isn't it?
I don't think it's unfair. I think that it's interesting because if we think about Prince Andrew, it just makes me think of how the spy could have got there in his little teddy bear collection and whether there might be spyware now installed.
I do worry about the
teddy bears.
Teddy bears. Oh, no,
I worry about Big Ted and Paddington. Prince Andrew, how do you solve a problem like Prince Andrew, Alex?
Well, this is where we mentioned Titanic, surely. Yeah?
This is appropriate.
Crafting ship.
Why was he not suspicious when he referred to this guy as H6? That's a bit spy-like, isn't it?
Bit of worry, yeah, that's right.
No, I think Prince Andrew needs something to do. Right? He needs a purpose.
He needs a job.
And this sounds like a wind-up, but I mean this. There was a new show on Netflix this week called Polo. And Harry and Meghan are behind this. It's another one of their programmes, which I would imagine no one's going to watch. It's so elite, beautifully filmed, but so elite no one's going to watch it. What would make a great documentary would be Andrew and Fergie, and how, because they kind of live together.
That's a brilliant idea.
Because they live together.
You have saved the company.
Yeah, and then he can make some of his own money.
Yeah, he could make his own money. It's all about cash with Andrew. He needs millions to keep that 30-room mansion, and he's going to keep making these stupid mistakes because he's so desperate. But if you gave him the American chat show circuit and you gave him a Netflix series, it would be a massive hit.
OK, we haven't done this on the show, but we're going to introduce this, Mel. What do you think about this? Can I get a wide shot? Give me a wide shot. This could be the first mic drop of the show. There we are. Well, it's a mug drop, which is very similar, because that is the best idea I've heard in a long time.
Thank you.
To rescue Prince Andrew's reputation, a sort of warts and all documentary.
It would be fantastic.
I would watch it.
Yeah, he'll get paid a fortune, he can settle his debts, rehabilitate himself, and we can remember what an excellent guy he actually is.
I think we'd learn a lot.
And he might get some fans again.
Ooh. There you go. I like it. Oh, I tell you what, I'm warming to the mug drop as well.
Oh,
look at that. Very satisfying. Right, folks. Listen, are we on to our next item? What's happening now? Brilliant stuff. live telly. I tell you what we're going to do. Let's take a well-deserved pause. I'll probably take up Smokey or something. So, is sleeping with 1,000 men in a day an example of female empowerment? Alex has done it. He'll tell us more. And is Elton John right that marijuana legalization is the greatest mistake of all time? All of that next.
Evening. Welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Is rock superstar Sir Elton John right that marijuana legalization is the greatest mistake of all time? Alex, it's quite an interesting story, this, isn't it? Because Sir Elton is a man who believes that you should live your life as you wish. He's freedom-loving. He's had a very colourful life himself. Does this comment surprise you?
In a way, it does. Elton John has admitted he has a very addictive personality. He gave up drugs and then became addicted to shopping. He could not stop shopping. And usually, if you're an addict, you give up one thing and then you become addicted to another. He's been sober for 34 years, and I can't imagine many people who've been as high on drugs and rock and roll and alcohol as Elton John. So coming from Elton, I think that this is kind of underlining it in red, really, that it may not be as cool and as OK as we think to legalise it. But this is a story he did the interview with Time magazine, didn't he? And this is for America and Canada. He wasn't talking about the UK, was he?
Well, no, he wasn't, because, of course, we know that parts of America and Canada have legalised cannabis. California... No, is it California? Yeah, California. And also Texas and elsewhere. Amy, I worry about people like the podcaster Joe Rogan normalising marijuana use, as though it's a lifestyle choice that's without harm?
Well, I think it can be a lifestyle choice without harm, but the potential for harm is there. And when people are addicted to marijuana, it can damage them so much. And I think that's probably what Elton's seen, is some of the impact of people misusing marijuana.
And he found it addictive too.
But that's misuse of the substance. That doesn't mean the substance is inherently bad. So I wouldn't say you need to ban something to keep it illegal. Alcohol is incredibly dangerous, incredibly damaging. If misused, if used correctly, it can be OK.
What is the correct use, by the way? 4 or 5?
Well, depends on how many I had before I came on the show,
8
Mark.
espresso martinis.
I think I love an espresso martini. I think ultimately it's not up to the government to decide what you do with your own body, and I think that Elton John is absolutely wrong here. We know that marijuana is harmful. It can be harmful for people. We also know that there are also some great medical effects. People with epilepsy, people with arthritis.
All right, then, just prescribe it to people with illness and make it illegal to everyone else.
We can do that.
Because I can't just go and get antibiotics from my local Wetherspoons, can I?
Unfortunately, though, because it's currently illegal, just because it's illegal doesn't mean it's not already there on the black market, right? We currently know that marijuana is very easily accessible in London especially because the illegal market is there. So just because the government bans something doesn't mean it completely disappears. Or I would rather see the marijuana market be taken out of the hands of criminal gangs and into the hands of a taxed and regulated private sector.
But then what happens is if it's California or Amy or Texas, you wind up with more people smoking marijuana, don't you?
I don't know about the specifics for those areas, but I know where all drugs were decriminalised in, say, Portugal, usage didn't actually... It initially went up slightly, but then it levelled out.
Yeah, but
Holland have legalised everything, and their drug use is no higher than in the UK.
What Elton John is saying in this interview is that it's very addictive, and once you get high on it, you then start making stupid decisions about going to the next step.
But you do that with alcohol.
Yeah, you do, but he does have...
Are we going to make alcohol illegal as well?
And equally...
Well, if alcohol was introduced now, it would be illegal.
I think that's wrong. I think the government has no right to tell adults what they do with their own bodies.
OK, fascinating stuff. Listen, folks, let's move on. I've got a question for you. Is sleeping with 1,000 men in a day an example of female empowerment? Amy Nicole-Turner.
I'm not convinced it is a sign of female empowerment, Mark. I spent a lot of time this week thinking about this woman.
This is Lily Phillips, who has, I understand, been intimate with 100 men in a day so far, and the plan is 1,000 in a day next year.
But you say be intimate. I didn't see anything intimate about this, and I think that's partly the problem. So a lot of people would say, well, you know, as long as she's safe and as long as she's happy and healthy, then what harm could it do? Whereas I think it is doing a lot of harm. I think it's akin to self-harm, actually, what she's doing to herself. And if somebody was self-harming, you could say, oh, they've got their bodily autonomy. If they want to do that, it's their body. I think you can apply that same argument to her and say, no, she's not safe. And also she expressed this week that she wasn't aware of some of the risks of HIV. And if she is being intimate with 1,000 people and she isn't completely aware of the risks, which she made very clear earlier in an interview she did this week, then she's not safe.
I mean, am I to understand protection was not taken in this?
Protection is taken for the actual bit, but anything else, no protection. So she is exchanging bodily fluids with a lot of men.
By me, gulp. There you go. Alex, takes you back to your college years, doesn't it?
Well,
you remember your early days in radio?
I certainly do, Mark. I certainly do. Right, OK, so she slept with 100 men...
In a single day.
In a single day. There's no way she could sleep with 1,000 men in a day. It must be a long weekend.
It's going to be 4 minutes.
The cabin in the woods.
Maybe like a sort of city mini break or something.
How is it done? How does she do it? Who are these guys? Are they lined up?
I think that's true. I think
they line up.
Sad men that go in there and apply to sleep with this
Apparently they get 5 minutes each. Julie Bindel, the feminist journalist, has condemned the men.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I saw that in The Spectator. I think that it's partly the men's fault. I mean, they're disgusting as well. Who goes there and thinks, I'll be number 56? It's disgusting. Yeah. I also think that Lily I think her family have a lot to to answer for, but
they all work with her.
Just 3 seconds ago, you were saying you can smoke marijuana
Well, I
and
was
get,
about to say, at the end of
out
the day,
of your head on that.
At the end of the day,
Meanwhile,
this is the difference between governments and families, right? I don't believe the government should get in your way, but if somebody is doing something to harm themselves, their families and community should absolutely try and step in. I think that Lily's family, the fact that they've actively encouraged it, that her friends are encouraging it, that she is being told by her assistant, there was evidence on X, that her assistant, the people that she worked with, encourage her and push her to do this 100 men a day. It's horrendous, and I feel so sorry for her.
In this present moment, she could genuinely feel like it is her desire. She does want to do it, but in 10 years' time, it is so unlikely.
Though, aren't you patronising her?
No, I'm just remembering what it's like to be in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And when you think you know yourself, and you think you know your decisions, and you think you know whatever you put on the internet will be fine there forever.
And Amy, do you worry about the messaging of this stunt as well?
The messaging to men, because men are seeing women as something that they can
But this is a woman who wants 100 men or 1,000 men to sleep with her. Why are you blaming men?
Because my son will look at that and think that women as a whole want this type of hypersexualization, and they won't...
You won't, because you're bringing him up not to think that. This poor girl can only remember 10 of the 100 guys. What it's going to be like after the 1,000. I don't know if it's our job to step in, Mark, but I would imagine...
What do you mean? What, to join the queue? What are you saying?
No, to step in and stop this.
You can do an intervention.
I would imagine there's some form of mental illness here.
This is a result of female...
Who's got the mental illness, her or the men?
Lily,
I think the men
this girl.
equally are not well.
Don't keep blaming the
I don't
men.
think anyone in this scenario has a healthy attitude to sex and relationships, or they wouldn't be there on either side of it.
If you said to any young guy, you can sleep with this gorgeous model,
Do you know what?
it's all OK, it's going to be fine, you've got the OK.
I blame the porn industry, because they were saying, her and this other girl were saying, that they have to do more and more extreme things to make content that does well on the internet. So if we didn't have this pornification of our culture and these more and more extreme videos, she wouldn't even be doing that.
I've got to say, I completely agree with Amy Nicole Turner.
Drop the mug.
Clip that up and put it on the Christmas show reel. After a stunning local election win over Labour, and as they lead the Tories in some polls, are Reform UK now the real opposition? And as he releases a new perfume, tonight's top 10 list is Donald Trump-themed fragrances. All of that is next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm, as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing, and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood, that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It says joy.
Oh.
And it has a little bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Tonight's top 10 list is Donald Trump. But first, after a stunning local election win over Labour and as they lead the Tories in some polls, are Reform UK now the real opposition? Alex Dyke.
Do you know what, Mark? I think so. And I think if we'd said that 6 months ago, people would have laughed out loud. Maybe they are now as they watch us on TV. But politics is all about timing.
Yes.
And Trump is back. And Trump and Nigel are very close. No other British politician is that close with him, not like Nigel is. And I think this could be the next Thatcher and Reagan.
Wow.
Because, and of course, he's got plenty of time to set his stall out, hasn't he? And as I said earlier, Reform's popularity is growing and growing and growing. Imagine what it's going to be like in 4 years' time.
Yeah.
Reform's popularity is growing. I think it all depends on what Kemi Badenoch does with the Conservative Party. Now, the leadership election for the Conservative Party was a question about what it means to be a Conservative, which, of course, the Conservative Party have completely thrown out the window. Now, I think Kemi Badenoch needs some time. If she is able to develop a party around those ideas of capitalism and free markets and individual liberty and be a more reliable opposition or more reliable option than Reform, then that will, I do think the Conservative Party will remain intact. That being said, Reform are increasingly coming across as though they are more serious. The more serious they come across, the more feasible they look as a potential opposition to Labour.
Could Reform win the next election?
I think if they come across as more serious, if they develop their local candidates base, then absolutely they could.
I mean, you have a crazy scenario, don't you, Amy, in which Reform could be the largest party in the next Parliament, requiring a handful of votes from the Conservatives. It's not impossible that that could happen.
I think it's impossible to imagine a world where the majority of the country support and are fond of Reform. I find comfort in the fact that ultimately all political parties are pretty unpopular, and Reform included. I think we still have quite a progressive majority in this country. If we add up all the people that would vote for Labour, all the people that would vote for Lib Dem, all the people that would vote Green, I think they outnumber the people that we
Well, wait a minute, let's do the numbers, because
Reform.
if you combine those who voted Tory in the last election, that was about 6 million, 4.1 million for Reform. So that's more
than
support than Labour enjoyed.
I think that ultimately, though, Reform aren't going to steal any votes from Labour or the Lib Dems. They're going to steal votes from the Conservatives.
No.
Well, I wonder about
at
that.
the moment,
what do you
that's
think?
not true.
Can you give me can you get your crystal ball out, Alex? What do you think? I mean, could Reform? Well, could they absolutely eviscerate the political
landscape? Because if you look back, we tend to follow what America does, good and bad. We're about 10 to 15 years behind them.
Yeah.
And Donald Trump was not a career politician. He was a reality TV star who got the biggest, most powerful gig on the planet. He's now come back to do it again, and I think it could happen here for Nigel Farage and Reform.
Fascinating stuff. Well, listen, brilliant. We've got one final item in the show. Donald Trump has released a new perfume, that's right, which is why tonight's top 10 list is Donald Trump-themed fragrances. In at number 10, Very Stable Genius. Number 9, Dark, Elon Musk.
Ooh.
Number 8, Carmela Champagne, Socialist. At number 7, Blood Orange, you're welcome. In at number 6, Bergamo and Tariff. Number 5, Chanel number January the 6th.
Oh.
At number 4, Melania Melons, So Fragrance. At number 3, Mar-a-Lago missed. Number 2, CK1 stolen election, allegedly. And last but not least, in at number 1, Boss again. There you go, that was tonight's top 10 list. And I'm delighted to say, at 9 o'clock, Patrick is in the hot seat. Patrick, what have you got for us?
Well, Labour are tanking the economy, but they're currently off in Malawi and Zambia promoting economic growth over there. Ed Miliband lost 43 grand of taxpayers' money on a mythical office refurbishment. He's in trouble over that. David Lammy's given millions to a UN agency that supported Hamas. Prince Andrew, is he an idiot or is he actually working for foreign governments? And the mysterious case of the Suffolk Scrooge. We need to find the man who's been stealing people's Christmas lights.
Brilliant stuff. Get on his case. The brilliant Patrick Christys is up at 9 o'clock. Thank you so much to Reem, to Alex and to Amy. Really enjoyed your company tonight, folks. Please come back soon. And it is a big weekend because it is the last Mark Dolan Tonights of the year. That's right. I'm back tomorrow at 9. Don't be late.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening, welcome to your latest Met Office weather update here on GB News. If you feel like you've not seen the sun all week, brighter skies for many tomorrow. We should see a little bit of blue sky. The sky's likely to be back to grey by Sunday, however, but then it will be milder. We do have a weather front tracking south. That is trying to push away all the cloud, and it's doing so across Scotland and Northern Ireland tonight. That will allow it to turn quite chilly. It's bringing a little bit of rain over Northern England, North Wales, patchy rain and drizzle further south, quite murky over the hills as well, misty conditions, but all that cloud again keeping temperatures above freezing in the south, whereas we will see some pockets of frost over Northern England and eastern Scotland. A few showers coming in on that brisk wind as well, but generally that cloud will continue to drift southwards. So yes, first thing, still pretty drab over East Anglia and southern England. A little bit of rain here and there, but nothing too heavy. It is going to get brighter. Already though, by 7, 8 o'clock, we'll see breaks in the cloud over Wales, northern England. Fine start for much of Northern Ireland. Just a few showers on the north coast. A few showers filtering in over northern Scotland. A bit of snow mixed in with those, but only really over the tops of the mountains. And then as we go through the day, as I say, many places will see sunny spells. The showers actually tending to fade over North Wales and western Scotland, and the cloud finally breaking up across East Anglia in the southeast. So yes, you should see a bit of sunshine here after what's been a very gloomy week. Meanwhile, it will then turn cloudy and soggy across the far northwest with a breeze picking up here. Temperature-wise, single digits, so still a chilly feel, but with a bit of sunshine. That makes such a difference, and it's certainly looking milder on Sunday. The cloud is back. A grey day for many. Rain and drizzle over hills and around coasts in the west, and it could turn very wet across northwest Scotland by the end of Sunday. Also quite windy here on Sunday, and some gusty winds over northern England too, so be aware of that. But despite the wind and the cloud, it will be a lot milder on Sunday.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements, or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go